Picture a watering hole in Africa. A lion leans down to drink. Just across the water, a crocodile floats still. Two of the most lethal animals alive, barely 3 steps apart. Your whole body tenses. You expect an explosion of violence, but it never happens. The lion drinks its fill. The crocodile slips silently beneath the surface. And that's it. Feels wrong, doesn't it? Two natural-born killers. Not a scratch between them. We grew up believing the top predators are always at war. Lion against tiger. Shark against orca. A never-ending fight for the crown. But nature tells a completely different story. A story most people get totally wrong. Back in 2019, marine biologist Salvador Jorgensen followed 165 great white sharks along the California coast. What he discovered stunned everyone. The most terrifying hunter in the ocean flees every single time. And before this video ends, you'll see why nearly every apex predator on Earth obeys one hidden rule. The same rule that's been secretly shaping your life. Stick around, because the ending will change how you see every fight you've ever walked away from. Let's begin with something simple. What even makes an animal an apex predator? The answer is easy. Nothing hunts it. Once fully grown, it sits alone at the top of the food chain. No predator above it, no enemy looking down on it. You'd assume that brings pure confidence. Total power. Fear nothing, attack everything. But here's the twist. Sitting at the top doesn't make an animal reckless. It makes it cautious. Try seeing the world through its eyes for a moment. Every day is one giant math problem. Energy gained versus energy spent. Risk of injury versus the reward. A lion has no health insurance. A shark has no hospital. Out in the wild, there's no emergency room, no stitches, no medicine. A broken leg isn't just a rough day. It's a death sentence. So ask yourself something. What killed more apex predators over history, rival species, or their own bodies failing after one reckless risk? Science leans hard toward the second answer. And here's the strange part. The same instincts that make a predator deadly also make it terrified of pain. Hunting a gazelle is calculated. Fast, sharp, low risk. If it fails, it simply tries again tomorrow. But fighting another apex predator is a whole different gamble. Even the winner walks away bleeding. And a wounded predator can't hunt. And a predator that can't hunt slowly starves. So evolution pulled off something clever. It didn't make top predators braver. It made them smarter at avoiding. Now let's get specific. Picture a single stretch of African savanna. 5 powerful hunters sharing the exact same land. Lions, leopards, cheetahs, spotted hyenas, and wild dogs. If they all fought for the same turf the same way at the same time, half would be gone in one season. Instead, something incredible unfolds. They divide the world with no meeting, no vote, just instinct, passed down across countless generations. Lions dominate the ground in the cooler hours, so leopards adapt. They become climbers. They haul their kills high into the trees, out of reach, anything to avoid losing a meal or their life. Cheetahs take another path entirely. They hunt in the brutal midday heat, the exact hours lions are too hot and too lazy to move. It's not the perfect time to hunt, but it's the safest. And wild dogs are the smallest of them all. So instead of fighting head-on, they never stop running, covering huge distances just to stay clear of lion territory. Nobody drew these lines. There's no agreement, just thousands of years of the cautious ones surviving long enough to pass it on. Scientists even have a name for this: niche partitioning. And it isn't only about space, it's about time itself. In parts of the Americas, jaguars and pumas share nearly identical land. Same prey, same terrain, same size. So what keeps them from crashing into each other? The clock. Jaguars favor the daylight, pumas drift into the night, 2 apex predators sharing one forest, quietly working opposite shifts. A timeshare nobody planned. Their ancestors' survival planned it for them. But nothing proves this rule better than what happened off California. Imagine floating near the Farallon Islands, just outside San Francisco. Every autumn, great white sharks gather here, some stretching over 18 feet long. This is their kingdom, their hunting ground for young elephant seals. In a normal season, researchers counted around 40 kills near this island. For years, everyone believed nothing in these waters could challenge them. Then the tagging data revealed something odd. On certain days, every single shark disappeared at once, and they wouldn't return, not for weeks, sometimes not for a whole year. So what was scaring off the ocean's fiercest hunter? Killer whales, not even attacking. just passing through. The instant orcas entered the area, the sharks didn't stay to test who was stronger. Tags showed some fleeing within minutes of an orca simply appearing, even when the orcas lingered for less than an hour. And once the sharks vanished, seal kills in that zone dropped by more than half, sometimes down to almost nothing. Two apex predators, same prey, same water. And one of them just leaves instantly. No standoff, no test of strength, just a fast, total retreat. Scientists still debate the reason. Are the sharks afraid of becoming prey themselves, or do they simply refuse to compete against something built like a torpedo with teeth? Either way, the message is identical. Even the ocean's apex hunter has decided some fights aren't worth it. But sometimes splitting by time isn't even needed. Sometimes the world itself splits in half. Think of a tiger and a crocodile sharing one river. On paper, it sounds like the ultimate showdown. In reality, it's almost a non-event. The tiger owns the land, the crocodile owns the water. One breathes air and prowls through grass. The other waits below, barely a ripple. They aren't enemies, they're neighbors who never show up to the same meeting. This is resource partitioning, a different flavor of the same rule. Instead of splitting the clock, they split the map by element. Land versus water. Two separate battlefields, two separate killers. Almost no overlap at all. And here's what should really sink in. None of this is a conscious choice. No tiger ever thought, I'll avoid the water to dodge crocodiles. This behavior was burned into the species itself, generation after generation, because the ones who ignored the boundary didn't live to pass on their genes. You're watching millions of years of trial and error, except the failed trials never got a second chance. So what did they do with all those hours they weren't fighting? They watched, they tracked, they memorized the schedule of every rival in their territory, like learning a coworker's habits without ever speaking to them. Camera traps have caught this happening live. Researchers watching competing predators found something almost eerie. The animals weren't avoiding each other by accident. They adjusted day by day based on where rivals had recently been seen, like reading an invisible calendar nobody ever wrote. That's not luck. That's pure instinct doing the math. But that's only half the story. Splitting land and time still doesn't explain everything. What happens in that rare moment two apex predators truly meet? Not near each other, not sharing a river, actually standing in the same clearing with nowhere left to run. Even then, most of the time, nothing happens. Researchers describe something almost like a silent negotiation, a long stare, a stiffened body, ears back, muscles locked, every signal of readiness on display. And then, more often than not, one simply turns and leaves. It looks like a standoff. It's actually a conversation. Every muscle twitch, every angle of the body is information. I could win this, but I don't want to pay for it. Do you? And usually, both read the same answer in each other. Not worth it. And they part ways without a single drop of blood. This is what surprises people the most. The size of the teeth, the power of the jaw, none of it prevents the fight. It's the shared, silent understanding. That violence between equals rarely creates a clean winner. Just two broken animals and a patch of forest neither controls any better than before. So here's the real question underneath it all. If direct conflict is this dangerous, this costly, this rare, why does it ever happen? Because sometimes the math changes. When food gets scarce enough, when territory gets tight enough, the risk of starving can outweigh the risk of fighting. That's when you see lions killing leopard cubs, wolves killing coyotes, the rare, brutal exception that proves how strong the avoidance instinct usually is. These clashes aren't the norm. They're the last resort, a sign the whole system of avoidance has already collapsed. But even then, notice what almost never happens. You don't see two apex predators squaring off in a fair, drawn-out battle just to prove who's stronger. What you see instead is ambush, opportunity. A predator picking off a rival's vulnerable young, then vanishing, rather than facing a grown adult on equal ground. Even the exception obeys the rule. Minimize the risk, take the smallest fight possible, get out fast. Now compare that to how we imagine these battles. Two titans locked in combat, neither backing down until one falls. That image barely exists in nature. It lives mostly in documentaries edited for drama, and inside your own imagination. The truth is quieter, less cinematic, and honestly far more impressive once you understand it. Which brings us to the real reason this pattern repeats. Ecosystem after ecosystem, species after species. Apex predators didn't reach the top by being the most aggressive. They reached it by mastering which battles to skip. And that's not really a story about lions or sharks. It's a story about you. Every single day, you run the exact same calculation. Whether you notice it or not, the argument you don't start, the confrontation you quietly walk away from, the fight that isn't worth the damage it would cause. We call it being the bigger person. Nature just calls it survival math. Think about the last time you backed down from something you could have won, a comment you let slide, a door you didn't slam, a rival you simply stopped competing with, not because you were scared, but because it wasn't worth the cost. That wasn't weakness. That was a lion choosing not to swim toward a crocodile it never needed to fight. You do this more than you realize. At work, when you let a disagreement go instead of turning it into a war for status. At home, when you choose the quiet exit over an argument that proves nothing. Every one of those moments is the same calculation a shark makes the instant it senses an orca. Not a retreat, a recalibration. The predators that fill our nightmares, the ones we picture in endless brutal war, spend almost their entire lives avoiding each other. They didn't build their kingdoms by fighting every rival they met. They built them by knowing instantly which fights would cost more than they could ever win back. Strength was never about being willing to fight everyone. It was about being strong enough to know when you don't have to.